The second my son hit the switch and our lights didn't come on, I knew she did it. Whole damn street lit up like Times Square, except for our house. Pitch black. Karen actually cut the power on Christmas Eve. Alright, so here's the thing about me. I'm not the kind of guy who picks fights. I'm not loud, I'm not petty, and I sure as hell don't go looking for drama. I'm a regular guy who works with his hands, keeps to himself, and just wants some peace and quiet with his family. That's it. That's all I ask from the world. My name's Mike Dunbar. I own a small electrical business here in town. Bright Current Electric. Nothing fancy, just me, a van, and a couple of guys I've known since high school who help out when I've got too much on my plate. Most of the time, I'm crawling through attics or rewiring ancient panels in century-old houses. It's not glamorous work, but it's honest. And after doing it for over 20 years, I can tell you, I know a thing or two about Christmas lights. We moved into Birchwood Lane about 6 years ago. Quiet neighborhood, tight lawns, way too many rules for how small the mailboxes are allowed to be. But you know what? The schools were good, the houses were decent, and most of the neighbors seemed normal. At first. My wife Becky, she's a school teacher over at Emerson Middle. She fell in love with the street the moment she saw it. She liked the sidewalks, the tree-lined drives, the way the cul-de-sac looped around like a perfect little bubble. I remember her saying, "It feels like the kind of place where people grow old together." I think we both needed that. After her dad passed away, she went through a rough stretch that year, and we were trying to rebuild. And then there's Ethan, our son, 14 going on 40. Smart kid, kind heart, and deeply obsessed with all things Christmas. Not just Santa and cookies stuff. I mean, he can tell you the entire history of how the Rockefeller Center tree started. Every year, once Halloween's over, it's game on in our house. We start planning, sketching, testing new ideas. See, decorating the house for Christmas isn't just about stringing a few lights and tossing a wreath on the door. Not for us. It's a whole tradition. We do it together. Me, Becky, Ethan, and even Rusty, our old golden retriever who mostly just supervises with a wagging tail and steals ornaments when he thinks we're not watching. Last year, Ethan got into syncing lights to music and not just the basic blink to jingle bells stuff. He wanted the full show. Projectors, programmed LEDs, sound systems, even those little dancing candy canes that bounce to the beat. He begged me to teach him how to wire it all. And I'll be honest, I was kinda proud. It's one thing to pass down your old tools, it's another when your kid actually wants to use them. So we spent weeks putting it together, every weekend, every spare evening, testing connections, writing out cue sequences, designing transitions from one song to the next. Ethan came up with this idea to have a giant glowing Santa DJ booth on the roof, complete with spinning lights and animated snow behind him. It was ridiculous and awesome. Becky joined in too. She's the creative one. While we were running cables, she was painting foam boards to look like gingerbread houses, wrapping fake presents to line the porch, and hot gluing sequins onto literally everything. We weren't doing it to show off. That's the thing people don't get. We did it because it felt good. It brought us together, made us laugh, and, especially this year, gave Becky something to look forward to again. Something joyful. I hadn't seen her smile like that in months. And the neighbors? Man, they loved it. We posted a few sneak peeks in the Birchwood chat and people were already asking when the lights were going live. Mrs. Alvarez, the sweet old lady down the block with the 6 garden gnomes, actually walked over and gave us cookies while we were working on the yard. She said our house looked like a little piece of magic. Tommy and Jenna, the young couple across the street, offered to help us hang the roof lights after watching Ethan almost slide off the ladder trying to reach the edge. It felt right. Like we were doing something good. Something that made the street a little brighter, literally and figuratively. And I'll admit, when the annual HOA Holiday Spirit Awards poll came around in the group chat and our house immediately shot to the top of the list, it felt kinda cool. Like, hey, people noticed. All those long nights and tangled wires were worth it. That's when I should have known trouble was coming. Because for the last 5 years, the winner of that contest had always been one person. Karen Whitmore, HOA president. Queen of Birchwood Lane, keeper of the rules, and self-declared holiday decoration champion. Her house? Cookie cutter. White lights, 2 wreaths, a plastic nutcracker on each side of the porch. Always the same, every year. Not bad, just bland. Like one of those department store windows that makes you feel like you should whisper instead of smile. But somehow, she always won, every single year. And now, this year? Suddenly a new name was sitting at the top of the poll. Ours. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured maybe it's finally just about who put in the effort, who made people smile, you know, Christmas spirit and all that. I didn't realize yet that to Karen, that pole wasn't just a little fun tradition. It was her turf, her throne. And to her, we weren't decorating. We were declaring war. And buddy, Karen, she doesn't lose. Or at least she doesn't think she's supposed to. Couple days after we posted the final video of our light show in the neighborhood chat, the one with the flying reindeer projection and Ethan's custom remix of Carol of the Bells, I got the first email. Subject line, Notice of Concern Regarding Holiday Display. Sender, president@birchwoodhoa.org. It was Karen. Of course it was. I opened it, already feeling that little buzz of irritation in my chest, the kind that starts low and slow but crawls up your throat the more you read. It was written in that signature Karen tone, fake polite with a thick layer of superiority buttered across every line. While we appreciate your family's enthusiasm for the holiday season, first red flag. If someone starts a sentence like that, buckle up, they're about to say something awful. The current setup of your outdoor display exceeds the recommended brightness and may not comply with the guidelines established by the HOA. Recommended brightness? She actually included a link to a PDF titled Visual Harmony Standards Holiday Edition. A PDF with charts. There was a literal lux meter diagram in it. Where the hell do you even get something like that? Then came the real kicker, the passive-aggressive closing. We trust this was an unintentional oversight and that appropriate adjustments will be made. Happy holidays. I just stared at it for a minute, then laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so on brand for Karen that it almost felt like a parody of itself. Becky was standing in the kitchen grading papers. I read it out loud to her and she rolled her eyes so hard I thought they might get stuck. What does she want? That we take down the sun? She said. Apparently we're blinding passing aircraft, I said. We both laughed it off. Ethan didn't even hear us. He was in the garage, messing with one of the new light scripts. I figured, okay, she made her little move. Power trip. Let her have her moment. I wasn't going to rip down something my family had spent weeks building just because she had a bruised ego. Besides, we'd already double-checked the actual HOA rules before we even started. I'd gone through the bylaws like a damn lawyer, and nowhere, I mean nowhere, did it say anything about light intensity or a limit on how many songs you could sync to your display. So I wrote her back. I kept it respectful. I'm not an idiot, but I made it clear we weren't in violation of anything in the HOA's actual charter. Told her I'd be happy to adjust anything that was objectively unsafe, but as far as I could tell, we were well within the rules. I ended it with a simple, let me know if there's anything you'd like to discuss in person. No response. For a few days, things were quiet. We kept the show going. More neighbors stopped by, some of them bringing their kids to watch the light sequence. Jenna even brought over thermoses of hot cocoa one night. She said it felt like the neighborhood finally had some cheer again. That one stuck with me. But then Karen started showing up. Not in any obvious way, she wasn't banging on our door or anything like that. No, she's smarter than that. She'd take her dog for a walk and just happened to stop across the street from our house, hands behind her back, watching. One night I caught her standing on the sidewalk with a little notepad, writing stuff down. Becky saw her too. She pulled back the curtain just enough to peek. She's writing down our light schedule, she whispered, like we were in some Cold War spy movie. I joked, maybe she's rating the songs. If we get less than 4 stars on Frosty the Snowman, I'm gonna lose it. But in the back of my head, I was already feeling it. That tight little knot behind the ribs. You know the one, when you know something's brewing, even if it's not storming yet. It wasn't about brightness, not really. That email was just the first little jab, the warning shot. She wasn't done, not even close. That was just Karen clearing her throat. A few days after that first email, things started to feel off. You know that gut feeling you get when someone's messing with you, but they're doing it in a way that's just subtle enough that you can't call it out without sounding paranoid? Yeah, that. It started with the neighborhood chat. Our post, the video Ethan put together of the full light show synced with rockin' around the Christmas tree, vanished, just gone, not flagged, not commented on, not even a note from the moderators, just poof. I asked in the chat if anyone else had seen it, and Karen, first to respond, naturally, chimed in with a cheerful little, oh, must have been a glitch, maybe re-upload it with less music. The audio levels were a bit much for some of our more sensitive members. Right, a glitch. Funny how no one else's videos ever glitched out. Tommy posted a clip of his blow-up snowman falling over in the wind, still there. Jenna uploaded a video of their baby trying to eat tinsel, still there, only ours vanished. That same night, we got a friendly holiday reminder in our mailbox. Typed out, laminated, and signed at the bottom with Karen's looping signature like she was the damn mayor or something. It said something about a renewed effort toward visual cohesion and how too many contrasting elements in a single yard can create a sense of disorder and disunity. Disunity, because of a glowing inflatable snowman and synchronized lights. Becky held it up and said, "What is this? A Christmas decoration or the Geneva Convention?" I laughed, but it didn't feel funny anymore. Then the real stuff started. I came home one afternoon and saw a little white flag staked into our lawn. HOA inspection marker. That's their code for, we came by and didn't like something, so now you're on our radar. The note attached to it said, "Non-compliance, excessive lawn decor. Please refer to Section 4.3 of Birchwood Guidelines." I went straight to the binder, the good old HOA Bible. Section 4.3 didn't say a damn word about holiday decorations, just some vague nonsense about maintaining visual balance with the surrounding homes. So I did what any normal person would do. I left it. I left every piece exactly where it was. Ethan and I even added a light-up candy cane to Rusty's doghouse just to drive the point home. Karen didn't like that. The next thing she did? She weaponized the parking rules. One night, I parked the van, my work van, in front of our house like I'd done 100 times before. It's clean, has my business logo on the side, nothing offensive or weird. Next morning, there's a bright orange citation tucked under the wiper. Commercial vehicles may not be parked in view for extended periods. Mind you, extended period apparently now meant overnight. The kicker? When I walked down the street later that day, I saw Jeff's landscaping truck, the one with actual mud dripping off the wheels, still parked in his driveway. Untouched. Why? Because Jeff happens to be Karen's cousin. At this point, even Becky started getting nervous. She's not a confrontational person. She was trying to stay positive, saying things like, maybe if we just tone it down a little, but I could see it in her face. The tension, the worry, it was getting to her. Ethan wasn't saying much either. He was still helping with the lights, but he wasn't bouncing around like he usually did. He'd come home from school, drop his backpack, and ask, "Did she do anything else today?" Yeah, that's where we were. My 14-year-old son asking if the president of the HOA had pulled another stunt on us like it was some neighborhood version of Survivor. Then came the meeting. Karen called a special session of the HOA board. Middle of the week, no agenda posted. Just a little flyer on everyone's door saying all residents encouraged to attend. Holiday topics to be discussed. I knew exactly what it was. A public shaming. We showed up. Becky didn't want me to, said she had a bad feeling, but I told her I wasn't letting this woman run us out of our own community. So we went. Karen stood at the front of the community center with her little clipboard, giving everyone her plastic smile. She opened with some spiel about maintaining the identity of Birchwood Lane, and then launched into a slideshow of appropriate holiday displays, all of which, surprise, surprise, looked exactly like her house. White lights, matching garlands, pre-approved wreaths. Then she showed a picture of our yard, full screen. No names, of course. She was too smart for that, but everybody knew. It was obvious. She paused just long enough to let people murmur. "I think we can all agree," she said, "that there's a difference between celebration and spectacle." Spectacle. Becky's hand clenched mine so tight I thought she might snap a knuckle. Ethan just stared at the floor. I asked to speak. Karen hesitated, then said, "Fine," briefly. I got up and said the truth, that we weren't violating any real rules, that what we built was a family project, something joyful, something for the neighborhood. I said we'd looked at the guidelines, and that unless something had changed without us knowing, we were in the clear. Karen smiled and said, "Well, Mike, sometimes community is about more than just rules. It's about harmony." I told her harmony didn't mean everything had to look the same. She didn't answer, just nodded and moved on. From then on, it was open season. We started getting letters, one almost every day. Complaints about noise. The show ran less than an hour and ended before bedtime. Complaints about traffic, people driving by to look, the nerve. Someone reported suspicious activity because Ethan was out in the yard adjusting the timers after dark. Even Rusty got a warning. No joke. Karen said his barking during the sleigh ride sequence was agitating her poodle. It became a slow grind, a constant drip of stress. Every day, something. Every night, wondering what the next move would be. But we held on. We didn't take anything down. We didn't dim a single bulb. Ethan kept tweaking the sequences. Becky kept wrapping fake presents, and I just kept waiting, because I knew. Karen wasn't trying to get us to comply. She was trying to wear us down. She thought we'd fold, thought we'd eventually say, "It's not worth it," and give her back her crown. She had no idea who she was dealing with. At a certain point, it stopped being about the lights. I mean, sure, that's how it started. Some twinkly bulbs and a 12-foot inflatable Santa. But it turned into something else. You could feel it. The mood shifted. Every trip to the mailbox felt like opening a trap door. Every time my phone buzzed, I braced for another complaint, and it wasn't just me, it started wearing on Becky. She didn't say it outright, but I knew. She'd start a sentence like, maybe if we just... and then stop herself. Or I'd catch her sitting at the dining table with a stack of progress reports, just staring. Not reading, not writing. Just zoned out. Ethan still helped with the display, but the fun was gone from his face. He used to run outside in his pajamas just to check if the candy cane strobes were aligned. Now he hesitated. I heard him one night telling Rusty she's just mad because hers is boring. Like he was trying to convince himself, not the dog. That's when I knew I had to try something different. Not for Karen, not for the HOA, but for them. For Becky and Ethan. They deserved peace. And if that meant I had to bite the bullet and play nice, I'd give it a shot. So I started where I figured any decent person would. I called Karen. She didn't answer, went straight to voicemail. I left a polite message, told her I'd like to talk things out, neighbor to neighbor, maybe come to a compromise. I even said I'd be willing to tone a few things down if that would help keep the peace. No call back. A couple days later, I saw her out walking her poodle, this yappy little thing with a pink sweater and a name like Chardonnay or Peaches or something equally ridiculous. I was on the porch, fixing one of the light timers. I waved. She looked right at me, then just kept walking like I was invisible. All right, plan B. I wrote an email. Short, respectful, to the point. I attached photos of our yard, explained the work that went into it, and reiterated that we had checked the HOA guidelines and believed we were in compliance. I said again that I was open to a conversation, that I wasn't trying to be difficult, just trying to celebrate the holiday with my family like everyone else. I sent it. No response. Not even a received will review. Nothing. At this point, I figured maybe I was approaching it the wrong way. Maybe I needed to go outside of the HOA, talk to someone with actual authority. So I reached out to the city zoning office, explained the situation, asked if there were any city ordinances we might be violating. The guy on the phone was nice enough, but he said as long as it wasn't creating a safety hazard or blocking any public right-of-way, they didn't really get involved in HOA matters. Your best bet's to resolve it through your board, he said. Yeah, thanks, hadn't thought of that. I tried the community mediation line the city offers, you know, one of those neighborhood peacekeeping initiatives where you sit down with someone and talk it out with a third party. They said they'd be happy to reach out to Karen and see if she was open to a conversation. I gave them her contact info and waited. 3 days later, they called back. The woman on the line sounded almost embarrassed. She declined, she said. She didn't want to participate. Did she say why? I asked. She said it wasn't necessary, that the matter was already being handled internally. Internally, that was rich. I even reached out to a lawyer, not to sue anybody, I just wanted a professional opinion. Guy looked over the HOA charter, all the letters I'd received, the citations, the emails, all of it. He said it was gray area city. Technically, most of the warnings weren't backed by enforceable rules, but they also weren't egregiously illegal either, just vague and annoying. She's not trying to win in court, he said. She's trying to wear you down. Yeah, no kidding. The worst part? Some of the neighbors started pulling back. People who'd been supportive early on. Tommy, Jenna, even sweet Mrs. Alvarez. They stopped dropping by. They still waved, still smiled, but there was something different in the air. Hesitation. Like they didn't want to get dragged into the mess. And I don't blame them. Karen ran the HOA like a little monarchy. Everyone knew that. She didn't just write the newsletters and host the meetings. She had people on the board who owed her favors. People she could call up and say, hey, maybe go have a word with Mike about his dog's leash length. One night I came home and found Becky sitting on the couch with the laptop open. She was looking at real estate listings. My heart sank. You want to move? I asked. She didn't answer right away, just clicked a few times. Then she said, I don't want to, but I don't know how much more of this I can take. I sat down next to her and said, we didn't do anything wrong. She looked at me and said, I know, but that doesn't stop it from feeling like we did. And man, that hit me hard. I started second-guessing everything. Maybe we were over the top. Maybe I should have just put up some plain white lights and called it a day. Maybe fighting back made it worse. That night, I stood in the yard and looked at our house. The glowing candy canes, the projector lights dancing across the siding, Santa still spinning records on the roof. And for the first time all season, it didn't make me smile. It made me tired. But just as I was about to go inside, Ethan came out. He had a screwdriver in one hand and a little bag of zip ties in the other. Figured out why the left tree wasn't sinking, he said. I didn't say anything, just watched him crouch down by the controller box and get to work like it was the most normal thing in the world. And I realized this wasn't just about decorations, it was about something bigger. That's when I decided I wasn't quitting. Not yet. But I also knew if something didn't change soon, if Karen kept pushing, if things kept spiraling, I wasn't sure how much fight I had left in me. I just hoped somehow the tide would turn, because if it didn't, I didn't know what else I could do. It happened while I was digging through the garage looking for an extension cord I swore I'd bought but could not, for the life of me, find. You know how it is, those long orange ones that disappear into some black hole the second you need them. I pulled down one of the old moving boxes we never really unpacked. One of Becky's, I think, labeled in her handwriting, office/important stuff/random junk. Buried under a cracked picture frame in a dead label maker was a dusty, beat-up manila envelope with our address scrawled across the top in Sharpie. Not mine, not Becky's. It looked old, like it had been passed between hands a few times. Inside, there were papers, lots of them. Deeds, plat maps, mortgage documents from the previous owner, some junk mail, and then, tucked toward the back, bingo, a copy of the original HOA charter, not the version we'd been emailed, not the glossy PDF from Karen with all the fancy fonts and her fake signature in cursive at the bottom. This was older, faded, typewritten, stamped, and right there on page 3 it said in black and white, "Holiday displays shall not be subject to regulation by the HOA, provided they are temporary in nature and do not obstruct roadways or pose a verifiable safety hazard." I read it 3 times just to make sure I wasn't losing my mind. Then I saw the signature at the bottom of the page. James Whitmore, that's right, Karen's late husband. I had no idea he'd ever been involved with the HOA, but there it was, plain as day. He'd helped draft the original charter when the community was first built. The date on the document was over 15 years ago. That alone would have been something. But what really got my attention was the yellow sticky note someone had slapped on the last page. File under Legacy Docs, not in revised charter. And in tiny handwriting, "Karen said we don't use this anymore. Old rules," she said. I froze. I sat there on the garage floor for I don't know how long, holding that folder like it might catch fire in my hands. See, if the original charter explicitly says holiday displays are exempt, and if the newer version doesn't mention that clause at all, that's a problem. Especially if Karen revised those documents after her husband passed. Especially if she never refiled the new version properly. Which, I had a sneaking suspicion might be the case. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I called Nate. He's my best friend from way back. We used to sneak into each other's backyards and launch bottle rockets together. These days, he's a claims analyst for an insurance company, but before that, he practiced civil law for 6 years. He knows his way around legal language, even if he doesn't exactly miss the courtroom. I told him what I found, and he said, "Bring it over. Now." We sat at his kitchen table with beers, the folder, and his old law school laptop. He pulled up the county's Property and Civic Association registry, started typing, clicking, scrolling, then he stopped. "Dude," he said, and spun the screen toward me, "look at this." There, listed in the county records, was the last officially recorded HOA charter for Birchwood Lane, dated 16 years ago, the one signed by James Whitmore. No updates, no amendments, no revised filings, nothing. "Holy shit," I muttered. "Yup," Nate said. "If Karen's been enforcing an unregistered revision, she's overstepping. Big time." We looked through the new PDF Karen had sent around earlier that month, the one with all the added language about holiday cohesion and visual harmony and a half-dozen other phrases that made me want to punch drywall. Not one of those clauses existed in the official document on file with the county. They weren't just unofficial, they were fake. That was the moment. That exact moment. The tide turned. I wasn't just some guy with too many Christmas lights and an ego problem anymore. I wasn't just some loud neighbor who refused to follow the rules. I had proof. Solid, paper in hand, county-confirmed proof that Karen had been enforcing a set of rules that didn't legally exist. And not just on me, on everyone. She'd been running this place like her own personal fiefdom, rewriting the playbook without ever actually turning it in. I sat back, eyes wide, heart racing. Nate looked at me and grinned. "Think she knows?" he asked, and I said, "Not yet." But she would. Oh, she would. I don't think I slept more than 2 hours that night. After I got back from Nate's, I just lay there in bed, staring at the ceiling, running it all over in my head again and again. The papers, the signatures, that clause, the county website, Every word felt like it was burned into the back of my eyelids. I kept seeing Karen's smug little smirk from the HOA meeting, and suddenly it didn't feel like a weight on my chest anymore. It felt like fuel. I had her. I didn't know exactly how I was going to use it yet, but I knew one thing for damn sure. This wasn't staying in a dusty file box in my garage. Next morning, I was at Nate's again before he even finished brushing his teeth. He handed me coffee and sat down in front of his laptop. We started laying it out. What we had, what we needed, and what we could prove. He was cautious. That's his nature. Just having the old charter doesn't mean you win right away, he said. It's a starting point. You still gotta show a pattern, that she's enforcing something unratified, and you need backup. I nodded. I expected that. I wasn't looking for a magic bullet. I was looking for a plan. And so the plan became this. Expose the fraud, rally the neighbors, and put Karen in a position where she couldn't bully her way out of it. We spent the next week collecting everything, and I mean everything. Every letter I'd gotten, every bogus citation, screenshots of deleted posts from the group chat, the laminated flyers. Nate even went and pulled the HOA's annual budget filings from public record, just to see if Karen had slipped in anything fishy. And wouldn't you know it, she had. There were reimbursements for landscape enhancements and community holiday assets that, according to the HOA expense report, were purchased from a store 3 towns over. But the receipts matched the decorations in her yard, the exact same brand, size, and SKU number. That was the cherry on top. God, she's not just petty, she's lazy, Nate said, shaking his head. I didn't want to just drop this all at once. That wasn't going to work. If I rolled up with a box full of papers and tried to throw it at her in public, she'd just deflect and gaslight and stall. She was good at that, making other people look like the problem. So instead, I decided to take a page out of her own damn playbook. I started small, subtle, strategic. First, I posted a friendly little message in the group chat, just a photo of one of the documents with the caption, "Hey neighbors, just found the original HOA charter while going through some old paperwork. Kinda interesting to see what's changed since the early days." No accusations, no heat, just planting seeds. The chat lit up. People were curious. A few asked for a copy. I sent it. Nate helped me scan and upload everything into a nice little PDF, clean and easy to read. Then I followed it up with another post a few days later. Quick note for anyone curious, the county website still lists this as the last official filing for Birchwood HOA. Looks like the revised version wasn't ever recorded? Just FYI. Still no heat. Just questions. Questions that Karen did not want people asking. I didn't hear from her directly, of course. That's not how she operates. But I noticed her tone shift in the chat. She got real chirpy, real fast. Suddenly it was all, let's focus on the holiday spirit, and we're all here to celebrate together. Too late. Next step was the neighbors. I knew I couldn't fight Karen alone, but if I had a handful of folks backing me, real people, longtime residents, the kind who go to every HOA meeting and actually remember how things used to be, that could tip the scale. So I went door to door, not with anger, not with some dramatic speech, just with the facts. I showed them the documents. I told them how Karen had been citing unregistered rules and issuing penalties based on policies that weren't even legal. Some of them were skeptical at first, but the more I showed, the more they nodded. The ones who'd been fined for weeds an inch too tall? The couple that got warned for leaving a tricycle in the front yard? Suddenly it all made sense. "She's been making it up as she goes," one guy muttered. I didn't say it, but I thought, now you see it. Even Mrs. Alvarez, sweet as she is, looked like she'd bitten into a lemon when I told her. "James would have never allowed this," she said quietly. "He cared about fairness. I wasn't trying to start a riot. I just wanted enough support to shake the foundation Karen had been standing on all these years. And as it turned out, shaking that foundation didn't take much. Just truth. Documented, undeniable, boring as hell truth. We prepped a formal complaint, Nate and I, cited the discrepancies, the unratified rules, the financial irregularities, sent it to the Attorney General's Consumer Affairs Division with every piece of documentation we had. But we weren't done yet. I drafted a motion for a community meeting, not some secret HOA board ambush like Karen liked to do. A real one. Open to everyone. Nate helped me phrase it just right, referencing the HOA's own bylaws, the ones Karen hadn't changed, which stated any homeowner could call a special meeting with signatures from at least 10 members. I got 15. Karen tried to stall it, said the timing was inconvenient and that we should wait until the new year to avoid unnecessary conflict. I smiled and said, "We've waited long enough." The date was set. Right before Christmas. Karen didn't know it yet, but her little empire was about to crumble. I wasn't just hanging lights anymore. I was flipping the switch. It kicked off faster than I expected. The moment the meeting notice hit the group chat, things got weird. Like real weird. I hadn't even gotten back to the house when Becky called me and said 2 cars drove by slow, just creeping past our front yard like they were casing the place. I told her it was probably nothing, but I didn't believe that for a second. By the time I got home, a new post was up in the chat. Not from Karen, but from one of her little inner circle board members, some guy named Doug who always looked like he ironed his jeans. Just a friendly reminder, spreading misinformation about HOA policies is a serious matter. Please refer to official HOA channels for accurate updates. Uh-huh. Sure, Doug. Karen was panicking. That much was clear. A day later, a brand new flyer landed in mailboxes. Not laminated this time. She was moving fast. But the wording? Man, she really went for it. Something about concerned members of the HOA being targeted by false accusations and efforts to divide our peaceful community during the most sacred time of year. Sacred time of year. Imagine that. After everything she pulled, she had the gall to frame me as the Grinch. But here's the thing. When you're used to steamrolling people, the moment someone pushes back, your whole rhythm breaks. You stop thinking straight. You get sloppy. And Karen, she got real sloppy. I knew she'd try to block the meeting. She couldn't just sit back and let the community show up and hear the truth. I expected some maneuver, maybe a procedural technicality or a delay tactic. What I didn't expect was a full-on smear campaign. She sent out emails, I know because one of the neighbors forwarded me theirs, saying I had a history of aggression, that my business had pending complaints, absolutely false, and that I'd been harassing board members. When I read that part out loud to Nate, he spit beer across his keyboard. She's trying to go nuclear, he said. Classic scorched earth move. And it didn't stop there. That weekend, I woke up to find a big orange sticker slapped across my work van windshield. Improper parking, subject to tow. Except the HOA has no authority to tow vehicles from public streets. None. Karen just printed her own damn sticker and hoped it would scare me. She also called in a fake noise violation the night Ethan and I were testing new light timings. I know it was fake because the cop who showed up looked pissed he had to be there. He took one look at our house, asked what we were doing, and literally said, "Seriously? This is what I got called for?" But that's when I realized she wasn't doing it for results anymore. She was doing it out of desperation. She was throwing anything she could at the wall, hoping something would stick. And yeah, part of me wanted to scream. Becky was exhausted. Ethan kept asking if the cops were going to come back. Even Rusty started getting jumpy every time a car slowed down in front of our house. But I knew we were too far in now, so I kept adjusting. Every time she tried something new, I logged it. Screenshot, timestamp, paper trail. Nate was building a neat little folder titled Retaliatory Actions. Then, 3 days before the meeting, she pulled the move I knew was coming, but still couldn't believe when it happened. She tried to shut off our power. Not just the show, the house. Becky and I were watching a movie with Ethan when the screen just went black. Lights off, heater off, whole place dead silent except for Rusty's tags jingling in the dark as he stood up, confused. I ran outside, checked the main. Nothing tripped. Looked over at the side of the house. Our breaker box had been tampered with. The lock was snapped. I called the power company. They said no outage reported, no service scheduled, nothing. Someone had done it manually. It took me about 3 seconds to know who. I called the non-emergency police line and filed a report. Didn't accuse her outright, didn't need to. I just laid it out. We had a long-standing conflict. We were planning a public HOA meeting, and we suddenly lost power after weeks of targeted harassment. The officer was polite, professional, and clearly unimpressed with the whole thing. "These HOA disputes get ugly," he said. "You're doing the right thing, filing a record." Damn right I was. But here's where it turned. When the power came back on, after I patched the box myself, I looked over at Becky and said, "She's scared." Because only scared people lash out like that. And if she was scared now, I couldn't wait to see her face at the meeting. I told Ethan to go grab the portable lights from the garage. He grinned. "We gonna turn it up?" I said, "Buddy, we're just getting started." That night, I didn't just fix the show, I upgraded it. New sequences, brighter colors, louder sound, a spotlight on Santa's DJ booth, the whole nine. Karen thought she could push me into a corner, thought if she hit hard enough, I'd fold like everyone else. But I wasn't folding, I was building. And this time, I wasn't just putting on a show, I was preparing for a grand finale. The meeting was held in the little community center just past the tennis courts. Same place Karen usually hosted her official HOA events, complete with tablecloths and lukewarm cider. This time, though, the vibe was different. I got there early just to set up. I brought copies of the old charter, the proof from the county records, copies of her flyers, screenshots of the deleted chat posts, everything. Nate helped me organize it all into folders. He even color-coded the sections like he was prepping for a courtroom trial, which, honestly, it kind of felt like. By the time folks started trickling in, I could feel the buzz in the air. This wasn't just another boring HOA meeting where people argued about grass height or whether someone's mailbox was too whimsical. People came ready to listen. And they came in numbers. Tommy and Jenna were there, sitting front row with Coco. Mrs. Alvarez came in with her little rolling walker and a face like she hadn't trusted a single thing since Nixon. Even Jeff, Karen's cousin with the muddy landscaping truck, showed up and gave me this sheepish nod like he wasn't quite ready to take sides, but he wanted to see where this was going. And Karen? Oh, she showed up late, real late. Just as I was about to kick things off, the door creaked open, and there she was, wearing this icy little smile and carrying her big leather folder like it was a royal decree. She made a show of it, too, strutting in slow, taking her time settling into the front table where she always sat, like it was her throne, and we were all peasants visiting court. "Sorry," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Unexpected power issues at home." Yeah, I bet. I cleared my throat and started. No microphone, no fanfare. Just me standing at the front of the room, trying not to let my heart pound its way out of my chest. I started by thanking everyone for coming. Told them I knew this wasn't how most people wanted to spend their evening, especially so close to the holidays. Then I held up the old charter. "This," I said, "is the original HOA agreement signed by the founders of Birchwood Lane. It's still the only version officially filed with the county." A few people leaned forward. I could see eyebrows lifting. Karen's smile started to tighten. I walked them through the differences. How the newer PDFs that Karen had circulated didn't match the official filings. How new rules had been added that weren't approved by vote, weren't filed properly, and frankly weren't enforceable. Nate stood off to the side, clicking through a little slide presentation on a monitor we brought. Each point backed up with documents, screenshots, photos, receipts. When we hit the budget inconsistencies, especially the ones showing HOA money being spent on decor that only ever appeared in Karen's yard, you could feel the temperature shift. Someone from the back actually said out loud, "You've got to be kidding me." Karen stood up then. "This is completely out of line," she snapped. "This isn't an authorized meeting. None of this is relevant. He's misinterpreting the documents." I held up the county website on a tablet. "This is the public record. You can call and verify it yourself." A woman near the front, board member but not one of Karen's regular lackeys, looked over at her. "Karen, is this true? These rules were never filed?" Karen tried to dodge. "We've been operating under an updated framework for years. Everyone knows that. It's about community standards." "So you rewrote the rules," I said, "and enforced them like they were law, without any official vote and without any legal filing." She started to speak again, but Nate interrupted. First time I'd ever seen him actually raise his voice in public. "You can say whatever you want, Karen, but if you're using HOA funds without authorization, applying unratified policies, and retaliating against homeowners, that's fraud, that's abuse of power, and that's grounds for legal action." Dead silence. Karen stared at him, at me, at the room, and then, like clockwork, the excuses started. "This is all being taken out of context. You don't understand how much work goes into running this community. If I've made mistakes, it's because I care." But nobody was buying it. Not anymore. People stood up, started speaking. Tommy said he got fined last year for a decorative violation because he used multicolored lights instead of all white. Jenna said she was told she couldn't put up a menorah in the window because it wasn't aligned with the street aesthetic. Even Jeff, her cousin, stood up and said, "I got a warning for parking my truck too long, but Mike's van got a tow sticker the first night." Mrs. Alvarez? She said the thing that hit hardest. "James would never have approved of this. You've shamed his name." Karen looked like she'd been slapped. In that moment, she realized she wasn't running the room anymore. No amount of laminated flyers or passive-aggressive emails was going to dig her out of this one. The board called for an emergency vote, right then and there, a vote of no confidence. And just like that, Karen was out, not just as HOA president, gone from the board entirely. A couple people even clapped. Not loud, but enough to know the air had changed. She gathered her folder, didn't say a word, and walked out the same door she came in. This time, a lot faster. No strut, no smirk, just her and her little sweater-wrapped poodle waiting in the back seat. I stayed behind afterward, talking to neighbors. Some of them apologized for not standing up sooner. Some just shook my hand. And Ethan? He ran up, grinning from ear to ear. Does this mean we won? I looked out at the crowd, the stack of documents, the quiet hum of people finally speaking freely, and I said, yeah, buddy, I think we did. A couple nights after the meeting, I was sitting on the porch with Becky, just watching the lights flicker across the lawn. The house looked exactly the way we wanted it to. Bright, loud, a little tacky in spots, and absolutely perfect. Ethan had gone inside to grab more marshmallows. Rusty was curled up at my feet, snoring gently, his nose twitching every few seconds like he was dreaming about chasing squirrels or stealing candy canes again. Becky leaned her head on my shoulder and let out one of those tired but happy sighs, the kind that hits different when it's been earned. You really did it, she said. You actually beat her. I laughed, not out of gloating, just pure, honest disbelief. Yeah, I said. Took a Christmas miracle and a stack of old paperwork, but here we are. She smiled. And the house still has power. That's a nice change. The whole street was glowing that night. A bunch of neighbors added more lights to their own homes after the meeting. It wasn't anything coordinated. Nobody passed around a flyer or gave orders. It just kind of happened. Like people finally felt free to be festive again. Mrs. Alvarez even put out this little animatronic reindeer that wobbled back and forth and made a sound I think was supposed to be jingling bells, but honestly sounded more like hiccups. And I loved it. Every weird, glitchy second of it. Jenna came by earlier that evening with fresh cookies, said her mom used to have a setup like ours when she was little, and she hadn't seen anything like it since. Tommy helped Ethan reset the snow machine when it jammed. Nate swung by just to toast a beer with me in the driveway and say, "Still can't believe it. That woman had a stronghold on this place for a decade." Not anymore, I said. The new HOA board voted in Jenna as interim president. She's already talking about transparency and rotating leadership and setting term limits, which, let me tell you, is a sentence I never thought I'd care about. But after this whole mess, it actually meant something. Funny how that works. It wasn't just about lights. It was never just about lights. It was about space, our home, our right to celebrate, to be ourselves, to not be squeezed into somebody else's version of appropriate. I think about that first night, the blackout, the silence, Ethan's face when nothing turned on, and I get this tight feeling in my chest. Not anger anymore, just gratitude that we didn't let it end there. We fought back. We got loud when it counted. We stood our ground even when it felt like the ground was slipping out from under us. And the best part? I got to watch my son learn what it looks like when you defend what matters, not with fists, not with rage, but with truth, grit, and a whole lot of wires and zip ties. I looked over at Becky again. Still think we should have toned it down this year? She grinned. Never. Ethan came back out with the marshmallows and plopped down beside me. He held up the bag and said, "One more for the road." I nodded. One more. Then I reached over, grabbed the remote, and hit the button. The whole house lit up. Santa started spinning. The snow machine kicked in. Lights danced across the lawn like stars on a sugar high. And Birchwood Lane glowed like it had never glowed before. Merry Christmas, Karen.